welcome back to the Not Carrie Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, I am aggressively late, I know. Let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. I am going to review episode 3 of House of the Dragon. In this video, let me first of all apologize. I got very in my head as a content creator. I got really frustrated, and it just sometimes happens where you unfortunately need this level of external validation to reassure you that the work you're doing, the effort you're putting forth isn't in vain. And I got really in my head about numbers and views and no one cares and I should just stop. And thank you to those of you who reached out and asked, like, where are the videos? I've been looking forward to your content. That was actually so reassuring for me. I deeply apologize because it's like you should be creating for the audience you have and not the audience you don't or that you're hoping to have. So I truly apologize. You guys are more than enough. Thank you for joining me. I was going to just come back and do a season finale, like review of the entire season, but I feel like I owe it to you guys to go through and pick up where I left off. I think I'm going to do 2 videos a week just so we can catch up a little bit quicker and get to the season finale and discuss that. So again, apologies. I'm back. I'm here. Thank you to those of you who reached out. I'm okay. I was just having a bit of creative block, creative depression, but I'm here. So let's get right into it. So episode 3, we're finally in the Stepstones and we're seeing the impact that the crab feeder is having. So one of the sea snake's ships has been taken over. It is being burned down. The men are being tortured. And we immediately get a lesson in what you don't do. Okay? This gentleman is being tortured, actively talking shit to the crab feeder, just singing the praises of these nobles who I'm sure he probably don't belong to no house and is probably in no kind of high standing. But it's just a reflection of how devoted people are to the belief that these kings and lords and ladies and queens are just by virtue better than them just because the law says so or something. It's very ridiculous. And he thinks that these people are going to be his savior. Damon swoops in on Dragonback and immediately crushes this man while he's like, yes, my prince saved my life, and he gets crushed. You are collateral damage. Like, shut up. How you gonna be dick riding for somebody who does not know that you exist? This is also, maybe this is an indictment on stan culture. There's a sermon in there somewhere. But Damon comes to the Stepstones with no strategy, just dragon fire and vibes, taking out his own men. He ain't did no recon or nothing. So he gets like this hellfire of arrows. He gets hurt, and then he just has to like ride off. Baby, you can't just be coming in there half-cocked. You got to be whole-cocked, okay? You can't fight people with, in a half-ass attempt. Do it with your whole ass. Whole ass, whole-cocked, okay? So meanwhile, back in King's Landing, we did a bit of a time jump, okay? Last episode, the king said, I'm about to marry my daughter's best friend. And everybody was like, bitch, what? Except for Otto Hightower. He was thrilled because he's a sicko. Anywho, so Alicent is fertile myrtle. She is pregnant and she has already had baby Aegon the Conqueror, who is turning 2. And they're like, you know what? We need to celebrate this function with a hunt. Oh, as an aside, I feel like the food in period pieces be looking so good, even though I'm sure it was riddled with bacteria and gave people all kinds of deadly diseases. But the presentation is always absolutely marvelous. And it always just makes me want a couple slices of ham. They be having whole roasted pigs, and I just be like, a rib or 2, couple slices of ham, something. Shoot your girl a little something. The desserts always look delightful. That's not what this is about. Anyway. So instead of Otto Hightower just celebrating that, his grandson has turned 2, which is a feat back in those days, babies and mothers were actively dying, as we have seen. I obviously have completed the entire series. I'm sure that you guys have, but I'm not going to do any spoilers here. But anywho, the baby has lived till 2. Hey, We celebrate it, okay? Birthdays must have really meant a lot back then because, like, life expectancy was like 30, 40 years old. Well, in real life. Viserys is, up there. Anyway, so Viserys really just wants to enjoy this function. Otto Hightower and his trifling ass brother are already plotting and politicking, trying to figure out how they can get Rhaenyra set aside as a successor and have Aegon named as Viserys' successor instead, because he is technically the firstborn son. But Viserys said what he said, okay? Respect what he said. He was intentional. He said what he said, okay? So Tywin Lannister is trying to sidle up to the king and let him know the tea that's going on in Stepstones. Now, this is important. He's not wrong, okay? He does need to know, like, your brother and them losing, okay? It's not looking good out there. And again, here go Otto Hightower, just a slimy, snaky ass, trifling asshole. He's just like, look, they went off and started that war by themselves. They'll get themselves out of it by themselves. This ain't our business. I get that you're the hand of the king, but we're nobody even talking to you, ho. Okay? Ho, why is you here? Because you're the hand of the king. I answered my own question. Anyway, so Viserys is also like, can somebody please tell me what Rhaenyra is? Rhaenyra has understandably made herself scarce, okay? Number one, she done lost her best friend to her daddy, okay? Rhaenys got her thinking that her claim isn't even legitimate because, like, these folks ain't really about to bow down to a woman. They had the opportunity to name a woman, which would have been Rhaenys, and they said, girl, go to hell, even though she had a stronger claim to the throne that Viserys is now on. So she's feeling shaky about that. And there's a new baby. There is a new baby. There's a new marriage and there's a new baby. And she, much like any child who's a product of divorce or a parent who's passed away, and the parent has remarried for whatever cause, and they have new children, they kind of feel left out. Like, there is no place for me here. Rhaenyra is quite justified. Like, this is traumatic. Meanwhile, Alicent and the king are like, we're all just doing our duty. We're all just trying to get through the day. Can you just be cool and just come to the hunt? And this is where we really see Rhaenyra and Alicent's first power struggle, where it's the queen versus the princess soon to become the queen. This is some foreshadowing here. So Rhaenyra, reluctantly goes on the hunt with them. And, Viserys is, again, just like, just be cool and come on the hunt. Come ride out with me. It'll be a twirl. We'll have fun. Also, while you're at it, get married and have babies. It's your duty. And Rhaenyra is like, everyone can fuck off, okay? There's no one here for me. So, it's interesting, having finished the season and looking back at some clues. We first see Larys Strong in, I don't know if this is like the pregame for the function. Is this the function? And then there's the hunt, whatever, in the tent, in the pregame. This is where we first see Larys. By virtue of Larys being disabled and being a man who is Larys Strong is a part of the Strong, family, and they do have a aptly named, like, pretty strong standing in the court. He's disabled, so he can't do all of the physical things that the other men can do. So this gives him like a weird permission to sit amongst the women and hear their gossip and just be a fly on the wall. But he is still a man from a substantial family, so he can also be in the room where it happens with the men. This is where some of his power comes from, especially because I think people who are disabled, but especially for these times, men who are disabled kind of get overlooked. They're like an invisible person, kind of like servants. You can't fulfill the full role of what a man is supposed to be, so you just get relegated to being with a woman. No one really sees you as a threat, even though you are actively a threat, which we come to see later. So Rhaenyra is approached by Jason Lannister, and Lannisters are just, it doesn't matter where we land in time, they just be a Lannister on Lannister. So he's really trying to make a claim to her. He's trying to make himself a substantial suitor, like, girl, pick me. You know what I'm saying? I got it. Casterly Rock is where you want to be. It's nice. We can make a dragon pit. And she's like, why you need a dragon pit? And he's like, to house your dragon, girl. And she's like, who said what happened? What? And so she's very unhappy with this. Goes to confront her father. And it was really giving Housewives where like there's a big function and now you want to go confront someone where there's this huge audience. And it's like, sweetie, read the room. It's like, you're getting spoiled. This isn't appropriate. But again, Rhaenyra is like, I don't want to be treated like cattle. So now since, you know, you didn't have your son that you always wanted, now all of a sudden it's like, let's just get rid of me and send me off to Casterly Rock. Like, what type of fuck shit is this? And Viserys is like, bitch, I'm just trying to have a good time. Why won't nobody let me just have a good time? And I feel him. I have absolutely been in this position, not as a king, obviously, but it's like when you're just trying to have a good time and people have just like unnecessary drama going on. And it's like, guys, life is short. Can we save this for the daylight? Let's do it another time. I'm tired, okay? So Rhaenyra does what angsty teens do, and she hops on her horse and she runs into the woods, and Sir Criston Cole gives chase, again, like you do. I, too, get frustrated and get on horseback and ride off into the woods, hoping that a sexy man I'm attracted to will follow me. Never happens. But we see from this scene that her and Sir Criston have a certain rapport. They built a rapport since she's named him head of the Kingsguard. And she feels very powerless. And he reminds her that, like, you are responsible for the biggest change in my life. No one in my family has ever received an honor as high as the one that you have given me, that like, you have more power than you realize. A little later on, they get attacked by a wild boar. And I'm just like, King Robert Baratheon, you know, fast forward 300 or so years or whatever, was murked by a wild boar. And then out comes this wild boar. And it's just like, what's with the wild boars? Like in the Kingswood, like what the shit? But I have been told in real life they're pretty vicious little fuckers anyway. But so anyway, this gives Rhaenyra this like catharsis where she can like really let out her anger as she just stabs this wild boar to death. And it's like, you know what? Good for her. The king is getting wasted. Okay? The king is getting absolutely shit-faced at this function as he's looking out at all these people who he can, I'm assuming that he's like, I know all these niggas plotting on me. I know everybody's just waiting for me to fail. These folks know I'm really not good at what I'm doing. I can't control my daughter. How am I supposed to rule the realm? Like, he's in a bad way. So Jason Lannister couldn't have picked a worse time to come up and once again try to plead his case. He got this big spear made and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And he lets it slip that he and everyone basically assumes that he's going to put Rhaenyra aside as his successor and name baby Aegon. And he's like, who said it? Once again, I said what I said, and all of you can really just kind of like fuck off. So, you know, he's not in the mood. And then here comes Otto Hightower, once again, sidling up to just be a snake of a person. He suggests that the king marries Rhaenyra to her brother, who's two, but who's her brother. And Viserys is just like, again, get the fuck out my face. Who comes along and gives him the best suggestion? And this is just like such foreshadowing since now we know so much since the season is over. So the patriarch of the Strong family comes and reassures the king that, like, no matter who you are, it's really difficult to raise teenage daughters. Jacaerys before you is one of the most celebrated rulers of our lifetime, and his kids damn near drove him to madness. Like, you're doing your best, it's fine. May I suggest that you just marry Rhaenyra to Laenor Valerian? This would mend fences between him and Corlys, who feels away because he put his daughter aside. And this would also strengthen the bond between the Valerian and the Targaryen households, which has been the goal from the beginning. And I think I said last episode, why wasn't that the first proposal as opposed to marrying this tiny, tiny girl to this old, old man? Like, come on, guys. But we have a show, it's the times, fine, whatever. So this gives him a little bit of peace, okay? So, sorry, y'all, I have my notes because obviously a lot happens in these shows and I want to keep everything together. Viserys and Alicent have a chat in front of the fire, which was a beautifully shot scene. I, if you guys don't know, am a whore for good cinematography. I absolutely loved how this scene was shot. I love almost any scene where fire is used appropriately. And obviously the king has been drinking all day, so he feels guilt over the queen's death because he had this vision of having a son, and in pursuit of making that vision a reality, of trying to be a dreamer instead of just, you know, what everyone else was in the family, or everyone else was either a dreamer or a dragon rider, and he wanted to try to be a dreamer and he wanted to pursue, you know, this vision that he had of having a son and all this stuff like that. And ultimately it killed his wife, and now he's beginning to second guess naming Rhaenyra as his heir. He thought that that was the best possible solution, and he just, you know, is feeling really unsure of himself. And I think this was a good opportunity. So from this point, we can really see that that Alicent and the king have, even though their relationship started off quite creepy, quite odd, there is a legit bond there. Like, Alicent gives very much my man, my man, my man, and I'm gonna stick beside him. So I think that was the significance of that scene. Um, the hunt was really difficult to watch because it's a microcosm of Viserys's rule and how it's being remembered or classified, as he does not have the stomach for bloodshed. He does not have the stomach for war. He doesn't have the stomach for politics from the violent perspective that is unfortunately kind of necessary in this world of Game of Thrones. Like, in the Game of Thrones, there is no way to get around the necessary violence to protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect your claim, to do all of these things. It's very difficult to operate in a world riddled with violence as a non-violent person. And as much as he wants to be diplomatic and all of the things, like, we see where that gets you. I mean, we saw where that got Ned Stark, like, early on in season 1, which I still can't rewatch. Like, that episode is too traumatic for me. Um, so there's this whole thing of, like, the White Hart, which is just this giant stag that, you know, before the time of the dragons, they ruled the forest, and it's just this omen or this symbol of regal power and strength and all of these, you know, things. They can't even catch that. They send out scouts who don't even successfully capture the prize, you know, stag, and they get one that's comparable. So he doesn't have to scout it, he doesn't have to track it. They basically have several men hold it and trap it. All he has to do is stab it to death with this giant spear that the Lannisters got made, and he struggles to even do that effectively. And I feel like this is a microcosm of the weakness that the weak leader that they all see him as. And it was really difficult to watch because I really feel like Viserys is just doing his best, but he's just not cut out for this life. Meanwhile, the White Hart actually voluntarily comes to Rhaenyra, and Christian Cole goes to, you know, pull out his sword, and she's like, no. And it's like they see each other and, like, recognize each other. I don't know. Like, there was something there of, like, a friend of mine was saying that he feels like maybe Rhaenyra recognizes, like, you don't have to kill in order to assert power. I think that there's, like, a parallel between her not having an appetite for unnecessary violence. Like, she killed the boar because there was no other choice, but, like, this stag is just existing and has done nothing to anyone. And it's this symbol of, you know, all of these things. Like, let him live. So I thought that was a really cool scene. Um, so I love that Rhaenyra comes back to camp covered in blood with a fresh kill in tow. It's like, you know what, go ahead. And everybody's looking like, what the fuck this bitch done did? Um, so meanwhile, back home, back in King's Landing, Otto Hightower is telling Alicent that she needs to convince um Viserys to make Aegon his successor. And instead, she goes and convinces him that Rhaenyra should be convinced, she should be able to choose her own partner in life. Maybe that will get her more on board with the prospect of marriage and kids if you let her make the decision herself. And she also convinces him to send help to um, the folks in the Stepstones, because she's like, regardless of what it will look like for your brother, for the realm, or whatever, don't you think that the realm will benefit more from having this issue resolved? We do need to be able to ship things without dealing with these people. And she makes a very fair point. And this kind of foreshadows the fact that Alicent actually has the strategic mindset of a leader in her own right, but we'll get to that in later episodes. So Viserys sends word to Daemon that, like, bro, we sending help, like, you know, we got you. But he words it in such a way to kind of like not bruise his pride, but he still does. And he and Rhaenyra have a talk where he reassures her that you are still my successor. You're not going to be supplanted, but you do need to choose a partner, not just because it's our duty and because you understand that that's how these things work, but because I don't want you to be alone in the world when I die, and you need to have children in order to shore up your claim to the throne. Like, that provides the stability that makes people feel like whatever rule is happening, whoever is ruling at the time, like, they just want stability. And it looks like they come to an agreement. So we go to the Stepstones where a mutiny is brewing. His name just fell out of my head. The sea snake. um, well, his brother is almost trying to incite a mutiny because, like, the rations are low. The crab feeder and his people are all retreating to the caves, and they have everything they need in the caves. So the fact that they have dragons really isn't helping them much because they can't get to them to attack them. um Damon isn't a nice person. Like, people really don't, feel like they're being led. Like, folks is giving up. And the only way to win this war at this point is to draw them out of the caves. So they need some live bait. Meanwhile, Damon pulls up and Corlys, sorry. Corlys and his brother are at odds because Corlys doesn't want a mutiny, and his brother is like, well, somebody got to do something. Okay, so then Damon pulls up and basically beats the messenger to death when he learns that his brother is trying to send help. This incites him to be the bait, to approach the crab feeder under the false pretense of a white flag, of, calling a truce, and, this plan works. Now, I have a lot of issues with the lack of reality of a shit ton of arrows. Just missing him. Just missing him. Now, I don't remember if he was running in a straight line like Rickon in Game of Thrones. Just an unnecessary death. If someone's shooting arrows at you, don't run in a straight line. Serpentine, serpentine, serpentine. Anyway, the crab feeder and his people are drawn out. The dragons come out, they win. He brings out the crab feeder's body, looking a lot like Dolores from Umbrella Academy, just half a mannequin, like this. It was giving this. And I was just like, oh, this is so much gore. It was so much. But you know what? They won the day. They won the Stepstones because Damon is insane. And that's where we left off. So thank you guys for joining me. come back for episode 4. We're going to play catch up and then we'll discuss the finale. Thank you again to those of you who checked on me. I'm here, I'm back in the saddle, and we're going to get to it. So be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the good things. If you like what you saw here and want to support my platform, become a patron on my Patreon. The link is in the this video description, and I'll talk to you guys soon.